Another DraftScience video presentation and such. Appears to be recording properly. Alright, some comments. Just kind of funny. Old trolls from years gone by. Mindless marbles. So he makes his stupid accusations, that somehow I am a, grammar police or something, and therefore I'm a hypocrite when I point out or state that it doesn't really matter when somebody points out a grammatical error I made or a typo or something. I find it petty and useless because, yeah, it is petty and useless. And I don't waste any time on that mush, and it's just a lie to imply that my videos are primarily based on any kind of stupid concerns about useless or pointless aesthetics that don't have anything to do with the point being made. I've never said to somebody, oh, you two T's or one T in matter or something. Something that is legible and understandable. I put a complete pass on. But then I don't just say, oh yeah, type any kind of slop you want in the comment section. Type stuff that's just completely incoherent. No, I don't say that. Okay, so it goes all the way back to 2018 to find some, horse shit where I apparently insulted him. But I mean, this is how he proves that this is somehow an issue to me, is he has to go, back into the time capsule, to find something.
Fucking goddamn art, and you goddamn know it. With or without the square inverse law. So again,
a square inverse law. I mean, it's a pretty substantial mistake. It's not like a little typo. Square inverse law. I mean, that's just messing the whole concept up. I mean, it breaks the whole point of the concept, which is this idea of a sphere. Its circumference is 4 times bigger. As you double its diameter, the circumference, the area of the sphere is 4 times as big. So it has a real meaning. And so screwing those words up is like, it's like getting, what order, family, phylum, order, whatever. I can't even remember the words, the 7 things in the wrong order. I mean, it's just sort of an important mistake. So yeah, I pointed it out just because, are you getting concepts here at all? Because it's just something nobody who has any familiarity would ever make that mistake. That's not like calling a proton a neutron or, making some sort of little casual error. That's such a glaringly weird error that it's worth mentioning. It's worthy of a mention. So anyway, so that's how desperate he is. I mean, it's just so pathetic. So clearly, I don't spend any of my time worrying about semantic mistakes. It's just a lie. And clearly, if I state to somebody else that I think people who do waste their time on this nitpicky bullshit are just a waste of time and the human race would be better off without them, there's nothing wrong with that statement. I'm not a hypocrite for saying it. So, fuck you. You're just so lame. So anyway, so I did respond to some other little horse shit. I mean, he just proves nothing. He just keeps making these stupid statements. He proves with nothing. All right, so he says, where is your example of something moving slower than the speed of sound producing a sound? So this is quoting me. Just another one of your lies. The basic loudspeaker. So we're going way back, and he thinks he made a convincing argument that he knows how fast a speaker moves when it produces sound. That somehow he did a real calculation, when all he did was do a fake calculation where he just calculated the amplitude of a wave like on an oscilloscope or something. There's no physical real-world calculation done anywhere. And I would argue that if you did take a time-lapse photo, time-shortened, I can't think of the name of them, hyper-fast frame rate camera, with a strobe, and took a picture of a speaker, okay, that you would find out that the speaker's moving really, really fast. It's moving a lot and doing a lot of movements and doing them very, very fast. So he hasn't proven that it's moving slower than the speed of sound. So we clearly don't have that. We don't have the time-lapse photo showing the speaker movement is much, much slower than the speed of sound. And then I would argue that every other sound you're going to talk about you have to talk about the fact that you are causing vibrations, causing things, okay, where there are mechanical systems moving faster than the speed of sound. Your vocal cords move really fast, okay? The whip is the classic example. The end of the whip is what makes the crack, and it makes a crack because it moves faster than the speed of sound. And you can just understand that everything that's making sound is sort of just doing that. It's just making a bunch of sonic booms, and the little ones, all different size ones, are combined into what we call sound. They're resonated into each other. They create complex forms. And those complex sort of forms are what we recognize as distinct sounds, like the tweet of a bird or something. But it's all sonic booms. It all starts with something having to go faster than the speed of sound to cause a cascade of the energy in a system. And the same can be shown with a rope. If I move the rope slow, I can't make a wave travel through the rope. It just won't happen. All right, it won't travel. The energy will get wasted. But if I make the movement quickly, the energy isn't wasted and it goes in one direction. And that's the truth, and that's how the real world works. And he hasn't provided any evidence for anything other. So anyway, the basic loudspeaker. It has been pointed out by many different people. So this is another lie. Nobody has shown me any video. Show me the video. Show me a piece of evidence somewhere on this planet of something making a sound where you proved the movement was slower than the speed of sound. Show that. You've never done that. All right. People are already to you. So there's no such thing has been done. Okay. Your response has been to dishonestly make up nonsense about the design of loudspeakers to your liking. Well, that's just a lie too. I didn't make up anything. I gave you I provided a vague description of the basic function. Okay, I didn't know we were taking a test, and that's just your perversion of the truth. And the videos are all public, so I mean, anybody who really cares to know the truth, okay, it's there to be found, and I'm guaranteeing you, okay, the truth is. I wasn't sitting there making any other statement than trying to explain how you can't sit there and just look at the wave and say, what kind of electrical signal did I put in? You have to look at what mechanically that causes. And the effect is on the fact that you're moving a piece of paper, and that's the bottom line. And whether it was if we described instead, if we used as an example, a metal horn. We just said, okay, let's talk about how a metal horn amplifies sound, with the little vibrations going through the metal. It actually goes through the metal, right? You can't make the horn out of too hard a metal, or you can't make any vibrations go through it, right? There's rules, because the stuff actually does have to flex. And that if you do videotape, it's like a glass, right? If you're going to break a glass with sound, well, they've already done this. You take a high-speed camera and you videotape the glass, and you can see the shit moving all over the frickin' place. Now, you can't see any of that with your naked eye. You don't see the glass wobbling all over the place, but that's what it's doing, and that's what that sound is. You hear a sound coming from the glass. So you're the one who has no evidence, and you're saying you've proven something. You haven't proven anything. You haven't disproven a single thing. And the irony is this isn't even a subject where I've made a specific video saying, oh, physics should have told everybody this long ago. Beyond just saying physics should have said, physicists should know that this is the truth, and they should be explaining it to people that this is how sound works. And it's just kind of funny to me that they don't. Okay, this isn't an important physics piece, because this doesn't have anything to do with the foundations of physics. This has to do with people who are supposed to understand how waves work. Right? You're the ones supposed to be the wave people. And it's just kind of fucking ironic that you don't even know how waves work. See, sound is completely uninteresting to me because it is movement through mediums. And I don't think the foundational or fundamental universe gives a shit about your mediums. Okay, there's no medium in empty space. So anyway, the principle goes something like this. I will need, probably should have more light. kind of dark in here. Yeah, I don't know why, but whatever. I'll turn the light on. Yeah. That should help. So the idea is the atoms are not directly connected in the atmosphere. They're kind of forced to be connected to each other. So the amount of air pressure makes the atoms closer together. So you could just say per air pressure there'll be a certain speed. And the speed is really just based on the fact that what you want to have happen is you want this atom to go, so this atom has an electron here and this one has electrons here. You can sort of get that part. Let's say more specifically it'd be more like the electrons are here and here. And the idea is you want the energy that you're going to push an atom here, and you want the energy to go, and so on and so on. You want the energy to push in here, push these electrons in this direction, and push this electron in this direction. You want to keep pushing the energy in this direction. And the thing is, if you go too slow, what happens is that these things are all pressurized, and it's really just talking about what happens with two electrons. If I have an electron and I push it into another electron slowly, well, what's going to happen is this electron is going to move out of the way, and this electron is going to move this way. Okay, so if I move in slowly, the energy starts going this way, and it doesn't go this way. Okay, only a small percentage goes this way. You start losing a bunch of energy going sideways. And so in the idea of sound, you want to avoid the energy going sideways. You want the energy to all go radially out in straight lines away from the source. You don't want the energy to go this way and this way and this way and be bleeded out of the system. So the idea is that if it does this ends up just moving electrons. You don't really move the atom. See, if I push in quickly enough, I push an electron out. And then I push this electron out. And I push this electron, and I push this electron. I end up just pushing electrons. But if I force the whole atom to move, then the energy is going to get wasted because it has to move the nucleus. And then it has to move this nucleus, and it has to move this nucleus. And moving nucleuses uses a lot of energy. So if I have to move the nucleus, then I'm going to use up my energy. So the idea would be is that what you're really trying to do is force two electrons together so fast, or fast enough, okay, that this one's magnetic field, so to speak, can't catch up to it. It can't produce enough of a reaction to stop this thing, all right, from getting inside its strong force zone. So the idea is to push it in so it gets in close. Now there's a whole lot of reflections between the forces. So you get a lot of energy here, and now you have a lot of energy force the next bit out, so it moves very fast again. And then that bit moves very fast again, and then that bit moves very fast again. And that preserves the energy. So the idea is not to move whole atoms, you just want to move the energy. To move the energy, you'd have to move just the electrons. To move just the electrons, you have to move into the field quickly. So that's why it has a speed limit. It's not a speed limit, it has a minimum speed for creating sound. So if you want to make a sound, it's not like there's a speed limit. You can't go any faster than 700 miles an hour or something, whatever it is. It's 6 something, right? Well, it doesn't matter. Could be 5 something, but whatever. It's a number. And the number depends on how thick the atmosphere is, and how thick the medium is, how tight the atoms are. And the idea isn't that there's a minimum number or a maximum, like a speed limit, like the speed of light. No, you can go much faster than the speed of sound. You can move something much faster than the speed of sound, and you'll still create sonic booms. It's a minimum speed. The speed of sound is really the minimum speed at which something must move for it to create a sound, that is, to hit atoms fast enough that they just don't move out of the way. You have to hit them fast enough that they don't have time to get out of the way. They don't have time to move the heavy nucleus. That's the trick. So you have to move something quick enough where you're hitting the electrons, essentially, and moving the force. All right, compressing the atoms without moving the nucleus is, I guess, probably the key part of it. The key argument I would make. But I mean, the key fundamental argument is it seems quite clear that if you analyze any system that's squeaking or banging or making any kind of noise, you'll find that there's some piece of it moving faster than the speed of sound. And he really hasn't produced any evidence that speakers break that rule, that the actual diaphragm on the speaker is moving slower than the speed of sound, that any part that is actually making sound is moving. See, the whole speaker can move, pieces of the speaker can move based on the amplitude of electricity you put in that moves this slowly. That's not the part creating the sound. The part creating the sound are little bumps on top of that slow movement. There's all kinds of little bumps on top of it. Those are the ones making the sound. All right. So, I mean, it's not like I have made a video on this subject where I said, what is sound? And then said faster than sound movement. But it's true. I can make the video. And I'm just saying, but it's really not foundational physics stuff. But I'm just saying there is no counter argument. He hasn't provided any counter evidence. He's just such a liar to say that he has some proof, that there's some. See, he can't provide me a link. He can't show me a link. He can't just give me a link to some YouTube video where some guy shows how, look, I moved something much slower than the speed of sound and it made sound. He can't show me the video. All right. So, but he says, as has been pointing out by many different people already to you. What has been pointed out to me? Your theory? You haven't proven it. You haven't shown me evidence of it. You've just told me that when you did a rough calculation of a sine wave, you decided how much the speaker moved. Well, you can say that, but you haven't shown that. All right. So I said, you can't conserve. Now we're on the subject of the idiotic, the 1/2 mv squared formula. It's just so obviously silly, stupid, wrong, incorrect, nonsensical rubbish. I mean, I played the physics girl video. Basically, she points out how the momentum was completely conserved. That is, she didn't account for any heat. She didn't account for any jitters, any movement, anything. Just, the equation was quite simple. It went away. The other train left at a certain speed, okay, based on its mass. That was exactly a conservation of momentum. If that takes place, then there can't be any losses to heat. There can't be any losses to sound. There wouldn't be conservation of momentum if anything made any noise, or if there was any heat, or if there was any sparks, or there was any loss of energy anywhere. You couldn't have conserved the momentum, you frickin' idiots. So how can you have a loss of kinetic energy and yet have exactly the same amount of momentum? It's retarded, it's insane, it's silly, it's stupid. There is no potential energy in the equation of a railroad car moving on a flat train track. There's no potential energy in the equation. None. So you can't say, oh, the potential energy wasn't converted into kinetic energy and therefore it was lost. Didn't happen. There is no such thing. I mean, it's so stupid. So, so now he's already been an asshole, and now he's going to double down again on being an asshole. Okay. You can't conserve momentum if there are any losses to the environment. So any system in which you created any heat, any kind of friction, any kind of noise, any kind of sparks, any kind of atoms or electrons flew off, anything that requires energy, all right, and you put it into the environment in any form, then you can't say you conserve the momentum, because all of that has to come out of the momentum. There's no other place to get it. There's no magical source of I shot 400 electrons into space and I didn't lose any momentum. You can't do that. All right. So this sentence is so perfectly correct that you can't undo it. It's perfectly correct. You can't conserve momentum if there are any energy losses to the environment. Just a fact, a hard, real fact. Okay. You are even dumber than I thought, and more of a liar than any civilization should tolerate. There, I just added a little extra. And so he says, if momentum isn't conserved, then Newton's third law wouldn't hold. I'm the one saying momentum is conserved, but it isn't conserved if you did some second thing, right? If you use the energy to do this over here, and then you go to try, you're using your battery, and you do something else over here, you spin something, well, you're not going to have as much energy to do whatever the other project is. So I can't hit a 30-pound railroad car, a 3-ton railroad car going 30 miles an hour, can't bang into another railroad car weighing 3 tons and make it go away at 30 miles an hour. If that happens, there can't be any losses. There can't be any heat. There can't be any noise. There can't be anything. That's the simple law. That's obeying Newton's law. You're the one saying, no, it gained kinetic energy because all I have to do is make it a 22-ton car, and now I gave it more kinetic energy. The 2-ton car going faster has a lot more kinetic energy. But if I bang both, the 3-ton car and I bang the 2-ton car into a 5-ton car and see how far they go, right? So I take the 50-mile-an-hour 2-ton car and the 30-mile-an-hour 3-ton car, and I bang them into a 4-ton car. Guess what? They're both going to push that 4-ton car exactly the same distance. So this is just such bullshit. Your formula is a nonsense. One of them didn't have more energy. Kinetic potential, it didn't have more energy. All right. It's mv. That's energy. Energy. E equals mv. There isn't anything else. All right. So he says, if momentum isn't conserved, then Newton's third law wouldn't hold and Newtonian mechanics would fall apart. So again, it's just idiotic. What does that have to do with the simple facts of the simple experiments which say I can compress a spring? I put a 2-ton train here and I put a 4-ton train here. The fact is, when I let the same spring go, right, the cars are going to just have inverse velocities. The heavy car is going to go twice as slow. The twice as heavy car will go twice as slow, and the the twice as light car is going to go twice as fast. That'll be the simple conclusion. That's the simple equation. That's the simple facts. So all the evidence indicates, except for when you smash pendulums into clay, all the evidence indicates those are the rules. MV. Period. So you're the one who has no grip on reality. You will never show me an experiment where mv squared is correct. You will never show me because it's inventing energy. You can't figure out for yourself that you're just inventing energy. You're saying that something going fast has more energy. I mean, I've used the bullet as an example. An elephant sitting on a ball, a little blown up balloon, has more energy. Okay, more energy will be put into the balloon than if I shoot a bullet into it. Yet your math says, okay, your idiotic, ludicrous, silly, nonsensical math says, because the elephant's ass is moving so slow, okay, he has no energy at all compared to the bullet. Well, it's absolute nonsense. All right. You are making nonsense statement. No, you are. Okay, and you can't show a single video where your kinetic energy, your extra kinetic energy, that is your 5-pound train going 10 miles an hour has more energy, okay, than a 10-pound train going 5 miles an hour. You will never show how that lighter train has twice as much energy. You'll never collect it, you'll never show it, it'll never realize, it'll never exist except in your silly formula. It'll never exist in the real world. You'll never invent an experiment where the lighter thing makes more heat, or makes more noise, or makes more sparks, or makes more anything in terms of total energy. It will never have it. You'll never show it because the formula is crap. I showed you the silly history. It has no structured, scrutinized history. It was just some silly notion that all the idiots accepted, the important ones accepted, and then everybody just followed along. But it makes no rational sense. It's not connected to any volume of evidence. There wasn't a whole bunch of experiments that said, this has to be the truth. Show me that experiment. Show me the experiments that overwhelmingly show this formula has to be right. Because they don't exist. You stupid, ignorant piece of crap. Anyway, that you can't even be bothered to think through the implications. Show me the implication. You're the one who hasn't bothered to think through the implication. Again, you're telling me overtly that a car moving 20 miles an hour that weighs 5 pounds somehow has 4 times as much energy, as a car moving 5 miles an hour that weighs 10 pounds. Even though they'll both crash into a spring and compress the same exact spring, the same exact amount, you're telling me it has twice as much energy. Right? 1/2 mv squared. More than half. Depending on how fast I make it go. It's a silly nonsense. And you can't defend it, and you didn't defend it. You just double down, keep saying, well, I'm right. Where's your evidence that you're right? Where's your experiment showing me that you're right? You don't have one, you retard. All right. So I said, no argument has been provided showing why there should be a distinction between momentum and kinetic energy. There's no good history. They just invented this secondary term when they already had the word momentum, and it made perfectly good sense in terms of defining energy. And the whole idea of kinetic and potential, as I've already pointed out, potential doesn't even mean anything, because in chemistry the potential is hidden, obviously. In nuclear, you wouldn't even talk about a train and say, well, its energy is really how much energy I could extract if I nuked it. So that's just horseshit to say, oh yeah, it has hidden potential energy because its atoms can be nuclearized and cause a supernova. No, that's not the issue. The issue is what's the energy of the momentum. And it's always about the momentum. Momentum is energy, and 1/2 mv squared is silly nonsense. Okay. If you take 2 carts, so here he just keeps doing it. It's just so fucking stupid. You can't make a rational argument in defense of this nonsense. It can't be done. So this will obviously be convoluted crap again. If you take 2 carts, one with a spring attached, it doesn't matter how you can make the interaction between them really gentle, and it'll take away so little energy. A good spring. They've done this with air carts already. You put good springs on them, you can have these carts bouncing back and forth for 10 minutes. No problem. Because the springs are using so little energy. The springs aren't getting red hot. They're not killing a whole bunch of the energy. So again, he's going to try to pretend the spring absorbed all the energy. And it still wouldn't explain that if I take a 20 mile an hour, 10 pound car, and I take a 20 pound car going 10 miles an hour, and I smash them into exactly the same spring, they'll go exactly the same depth. They'll compress the spring exactly the same amount. Your formula says the faster one should compress it twice as much. Your formula doesn't get the right answer. And you keep saying it does, which makes you so irritatingly obnoxious. Anyway, if you take 2 carts, one with a spring attached, and you move one into the other, the momentum will be conserved. Well, except for the tiny bit of heating of the spring. But yes, it will be conserved. How am I saying anything against that, retard? You're the one saying, again, that if I crash the 20 mile an hour cart, the 5 pound 20 into the 10 pound 5 mile an hour cart, that somehow the 5 mile an hour cart's going to plow right through because it has so much more energy. No, the 2 carts are just going to bounce off of each other, retard. But the energy to compress the spring would have to come from somewhere. So obviously, the energy to compress the spring is given back by the spring. So springs are sort of like a perfect spring is a magnet. But see, magnets don't lose any energy. When I force two magnets to bang into each other, it's a perfect spring. Perfect. It goes forever. It never burns up. It never wears out. It never gets hot. It never does any of that shit. I could bounce it all forever and ever. So why don't you just say, if I put two magnets on the carts and I let the magnetic field push into the other magnetic field, it'll give back exactly what you put in to compress it. The same energy that you use to compress the two fields into each other be the same energy you get back. So it'll be a completely lossless system, and you won't have any excuses. All right. But the energy to compress the spring would have to come from somewhere. So again, it's always negligible in all these examples, so that's just baby talk. And I already accounted for that. I said as soon as you heat a spring or you make one little spark, that has to be taken out of the total. But obviously, in all of these thought experiments, and even in the physical real world experiments, these losses are minute compared to the total energy you're testing. So you wouldn't even be able to detect the amount of energy. It's such a small amount of energy lost. But it doesn't matter. All right, and then he says, but even then, the units of momentum don't even match the units of any other form of energy. So this is just retarded. Mass and velocity. What's missing? Right? You have meters. You have mass, which is kilograms. You have meters, and you have seconds. So what are you missing? So it's just that it's, instead of being in joules, it's in kilograms, instead of grams kind of argument. So the number you get from MV is still joules, but it's 100 joules. It's giving you the 100 multiple of a joule. So that's it. That's all. You didn't lose any capacity to put it in an equation. It has all the pieces in it. Okay, it has kilograms, meters, seconds. All the pieces are there, idiot. That's what a joule is, idiot. Okay. The units of momentum don't match the units of any other form of energy. So that's just absolute nonsense. Perfectly matches a joule. Your own statements are incompatible with any other form of energy conservation. So just absolute nonsense. I'm the one defending conservation. You're the one believing in some faggoty, unknown, bullshitty, weird universe where you just get to say a bullet speeding through someone's head has a billion joules of energy, okay? And all I have to do is slow the bullet down to half the speed and twice as much mass, and somehow it doesn't have any energy at all. And it's absolute nonsense. It's been proven over and over and over again, all these experiments, to be absolute nonsense. Again, I showed you the history. The history has been dramatized. Obviously it was dramatized in a funny way in the sense that they were pretending that the silly woman with the big hair was actually doing good physics when it was actually ludicrous physics. But the scene there, what Voltaire is saying, you're going back to religion, this living force bullshit. You've invented a nonsense. And it's all it is a nonsense. And it was already then way off because they said it was mv squared without even the half in front of the mass. So just imagine how way out of proportion it was, how way off it was in the two-car example, right? Where you're squaring the velocity and times the regular mass. So you kept momentum, you kept the mass component, and you squared the velocity component. How ludicrous it would be in terms of you'd have no conservation at all, because all you have to do is speed something up to make more energy. So all I have to do is bang slow things into fast things, bang heavy things into light things and make instant energy. That's the consequence of your formula, you idiot. That's its direct consequence, that if I want to make energy, I just bang heavy things into light things and I'm making energy all over the place. But if I bang light things into heavy things, I'm losing energy everywhere. You're an idiot. Yeah, that's it. You're an idiot. Okay. So probably enough of that. So maybe I'll do a second part to this video. We'll see how I feel. But that's enough for now, I guess. So, till the extra bit, if there is one, and or not. See how it goes. And such. Yeah, I guess I'm back. Yeah, I'll do it briefly. No intro, because I've already done that, right? So, continuing later. Just thought I'd read this little bit of a comment, and then we'll do a little bit of a Robert Ritchie video where he's, whatever. Whatever. I actually, I like actual models. Yeah, we'll see. That's the indication where I'm just saying, okay, you like it, but somehow you don't demand it from, the classic physics, because their models aren't actual models. I mean, virtual photon, bent space, all of this crap just isn't very actual. Anyway, people are trying to give a plausible model for how physics works. Yeah, and plausible in what circumstance? I mean, see, I look at it, it's almost like the philosophical conversation, right? I mean, the biggest mistake you can make is rationalizing fairy tales, religion. So, I mean, religion's just a gigantic brain fart. I mean, it just means you're not going to go anywhere good here, because you're just finding rationalizations for pieces of structure that were just invented. Okay, saviors and gods and, God's children and all the, whatever this bullshit is, this story. It's all just a silly story. So yeah, you can sit there and make all these plausible theories. Well, maybe there was an immaculate conception, and the seventh one, right, in the Bible or something like that, right? There was lots of immaculate conceptions. It was only this one Jesus one that was the one that anybody paid attention to for whatever reason. I mean, So anyway, you can come along. You can sit there and kind of construct a bunch of excuses for how it's plausible, or like why. I could ask the question, the logical question. Well, why would the people of Israel, after God saved them from the Egyptians, parted the sea, actually ripped it apart, and consumed all of Pharaoh's army in a flood, and they witnessed all of that, and yet a few years later, just less than a generation, fuck it, let's go back home. Let's build golden idols and go back to Egypt, because things suck so much out here in the wilderness, out in the promised land. Doesn't sound very plausible. Doesn't sound very plausible that Jesus' disciples or apostles, whatever, would all deny his existence and deny that he's God when they saw him rise the dead, right? I mean, and he actually gave them the power to heal people. They could go somewhere and they could heal people with their power that Jesus gave them. Doesn't seem very plausible that they would deny that God and, subject themselves to that God's wrath when the God proved himself to them, right? I mean, he's seen this guy walk on water, do all these miraculous things, and they're going to deny him? I mean, come on. So they can come up with some sort of crap, some sort of bizarre theory that explains why that happened. But it's just going to be that. It's going to be a bizarre theory, to rationalize crap. And that's what's happening in physics, right? I mean, they've created a bunch of instruments that exist, holy ghosts and, Thor and, Athena or something. I guess I can, pause. All right, so continuing. Never is anybody. But anyway, so what I'm looking for is something that is like evolution. See, evolution showed up as a theory, and they finally caught enough evidence. Like, there was plenty of people believed it earlier because they said, look, we're making vegetables change. Why can't that happen in nature? And, lots of people believed it. Darwin's grandfather was an evolutionist. Okay, before he even heard Darwin's collection of evidence, he was already in the mood to say, yeah, evolution happens. Look at the differences in people. They breed, kind of consistently, blah, 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 blah. So it was something you could deduce, but yeah, Darwin just gave you more evidence. He gave you more reason to believe, and that was what was so great about it. It gave you reason to believe it. And the same thing needs to happen in physics. We just need for some physicists, okay, to actually start over, actually get rid of all the gods, get rid of the bullshit, and quit trying to rationalize bullshit, and then just get back to the basics of what can we actually see that is taking place. And that's sort of what Darwin's approach was. What's the reasonable explanation for this, and this? And then you can figure out, oh yeah, well, the islands are isolated, and the island that's farthest away, the oldest island, has the most life on it, and the one that's the newest volcanically has the least life on it. I mean, you can start doing this deduction and figure out the right answer. And get rid of this whole idea that there's some child with a little playhouse and she's, putting the characters into the world and, some sort of idiotic notions. And it's like, but you people are just so resistant to recognizing that physics is a religion, that it's it's not a very rudimentary religion. It's kind of a now well-established old religion in terms of what they are creating as assumptions. And I've pointed out fallibility on 3 really important subjects. I mean, well, bent space is just a silly answer. I mean, it's a silly explanation for an inverse square law. We know there's Newton demonstrated with piles of evidence. Here, the simple cause is that as you expand a circle, its circumference, its spherical circumference is 4 times the change in the diameter. Half the distance in the diameter, double the diameter, you 4 times the circumference of the circle. And what that's really saying is that it's spreading in 2 dimensions. Okay, so something is spreading with distance. That is, it's getting diluted. Whether it was sand you're spitting, anything you spit, even, you can figure out your spit is doing the inverse square law. The little pieces are flying away from each other. And, as you go further and further away, it's 4 times, less spit is hitting you. It's just a fact that happens in a lot of cases. So it's an inverse square law, and he just comes up with some sort of, it's a magical bent space inverse square law. That's what's causing it, is there's a magical space, and it somehow is bent, and it bends, that moves things in, and duplicates this law. Well, that's not an explanation of anything. That's just saying gremlins did it, or angels did it, or magic did it. It doesn't tell you anything about a mechanism to cause it, so it has nothing to do with giving you more information. It's just a different way of saying the inverse square law. Bent space, there. I said the inverse square law. I didn't say anything. I didn't describe anything. I didn't explain anything. I didn't add any value at all. Okay, and then to throw time on there, you make it even sillier. So anyway, there's lots of arguments you can make against relativity, just all the paradoxes, blah, blah, blah. And the idea that there's no absolute value, absolute velocity is just babble. And then I've given you these extra ones. I've pointed out how the 2-slit experiment's complete bullshit. Okay, they've been telling you lies for hundreds of years. Young's drawing was inaccurate 200 years ago. Just a fact. Okay, so I pointed out a bunch of facts about how you're just being deluded by this notion that somehow forces can interact with forces and bang into forces. Now, I haven't made a separate video on it, but I mean, the Eddington experiment's never been repeated. There is really no good evidence that light is ever bent by gravity or any other force, and especially not bent twice as much. I've made that argument plenty of times. And then I pointed out that you can have sensible explanations for gravity. Gravity just means that more stuff goes in than comes out, period. There's nothing else happening, really. That would create the inverse square law. That's exactly what we see. So just come up with an explanation for why less stuff is coming out. And the other one is, I've shown you this huge giant. They couldn't even get something as fundamental as energy right. Where now they're saying energy equals 1/2 the mass times the velocity squared, where all the evidence says that's nonsense. There's no experimental evidence that shows where you can collect this extra energy by just making lighter things go faster. So it's nonsensical. Momentum is the right answer. It's the right way to understand what energy is momentum. And yet you're going to sit there and type this next sentence, which is just going to be so irritating. Okay. who are trying to give a plausible model for how physics works. I am personally more in line with modern science. So you're in line with propaganda, lies about what experiments they did. I mean, they just make up fake experiment detector experiments. This is what happens. We did it. No, they didn't do it. Single photon, didn't do it. They have no concept of what a photon is. They don't even understand what a photon is. They think a single electron, tiny, tiny, tiny little thing, creates an object that has polarization that's 1,000 times bigger than the object is. 1,000 times. So somehow this little thing creates something that gets really big and then goes in a straight line, really big. Does that make any sense to you? Does that sound like the evolution explanation, or does that sound like some sort of woo theory of magic? Magic, 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 magic. So why are you buying this crap? You're in line with propagandists. Deceivers, dupers. They don't show you any of this stuff. They just tell you the story. Well, the Big Bang happened, and then 48 seconds into the Big Bang, particle A took a left turn for some dopey reason, and there was a huge collision, and all the particles smashed into each other and created the moon. They just made up this crap, obviously. Dark matter, you believe this is a credible theory or explanation for something? We'll just invent something that only has one property that we like. We need gravity. So we'll just make a fake stuff that makes magical gravity. It couldn't be any more God of the Gap kind of an explanation. It's just shit. All right, modern science, but I have nothing against other models. That doesn't even make any sense to me. I just throw them all in the same bucket. It's all the same thing. Well, then what's the point in reasoning? I have something against errors and mistakes and egregious ones and overt ones. Saying things as if they're facts when you can't really demonstrate the logic to defend them. And all of these dissidents who just claim the existence of something and they don't explain what are you talking about? Field of what? Wave of what? Wave in what? They don't explain anything. And, you have nothing against that. Sorry. A generally positive comment, but again, I can't take it as a positive indication of people's capacity to get a grip on what the real questions are and what a rational way to view this is. Like I said, as detectives, you all look like Muslims, and you're all going to blame, some sort of Satan. It's already written in the script, so to speak. Who's guilty? The witches, and we got to go. Burn the wooden witches. So anyway, all right. So this Robert Ritchie guy. So now I'm applauding. Thank you for actually attempting to explain what the hell you're talking about by drawing a picture of it. But his picture is more just mush, okay? So he draws gravitational fields by somehow drawing a line in space and saying, okay, here's a line and here's the field line. What line? How does the field make a line? What is that? Then he has this proposition that somehow the propagation speed of light is faster than the speed of light, but the light is busy getting T because it's in a train car and it's going sideways or something. Or I guess he's saying maybe it just curves. So, he's doing the Ken Wheeler thing. Everything's curved linear. So instead of traveling a straight line at the speed of light, it's really traveling much faster than the speed of light and it's taking a curved path to get to the location. I don't know. Just bullshit. And so then he starts putting a line, we have field lines now. Gravity is field lines, right? There's no lines, okay? I can go at any one location and it's the inverse square law. There's no line I have to be on. I don't have to jump to a field line, like I'm an iron filing. I have to jump onto this line or jump onto that line. There's no lines. And then there's certainly nothing going this way on the lines. So he's doing, I claimed he was electric universe loop-de-doo. And it seems that's exactly what he is, okay? He's done exactly what they did to electricity, and magnetism, which is pretend there's stuff moving on the iron filing lines. Like stuff is actually traveling those lines, in some sort of direction. When, no, not the right answer. There's nothing, there is no line in actual space. It's always a synthetic created by the circumstance of what size filings you're dumping. And how you dump them. So I mean, this is just the magical field that's going around and around like this in different places for whatever reason. It's not gonna. You're not explaining anything. You're just giving me a declaration of this is my Jesus theory and this is how Jesus works. That's all it sounds like to me. This doesn't sound anything like a rational evolution theory. This just sounds like somebody telling a story again. He already picked some special characters that he likes, and he's going to put his little characters into the story, and they're going to make everything happen. So whether this starts with his notion that there must be an ether, everything must be moved by swirly bits, I don't know. When the simple answer is, yeah, everything's straight lines. I mean, they even have a phrase in modern physics, least action, the theory of least action. And that everything always comes down to, on average, it's going to take the shortest path. Well, that's going to be the average, right? I mean, the longest path is over here, and the real shortest path is over here. But, I mean, we're going to say the least action is the one it took, the one in the middle. But anyway, the fact is straight lines make so much sense. Why don't you start with straight lines and then explain how they don't work? See, if you could make an argument explaining why the straight line theory doesn't work, that would be helpful.
You've got quadrillions upon quadrillions of force vectors pointing to the center.
Right, so there are force vectors pointing towards the center. So the stuff is moving this way, and somehow it causes the planet to go that way. What? Yeah. Sorry, I can't make anything out of that. Why does it do that? Why does the electron is in space, let's say. I just put an electron in space. Explain to me why it's motivated to go that way when something hits it this way. Just explain it, please. And explain how that gets you an inverse square law, because I don't think it's going to.
Likewise. Now the rule is, if we made this mass here a lot smaller.
Yes, make it the size of an atom. And even smaller would be even better, because we know gravity's a nuclear force. We know it affects a single atom exactly the same as the Earth. There's lots of atoms flying around the Earth that are in the same exact trajectory as the Earth. They're doing the same thing. They're going down a little bit, the same amount. They're doing exactly what the Earth is doing. So the force of gravity is affecting a single atom exactly the same as the big pile of atoms that is the Earth. So it's clearly a force that affects atoms. It's not a force that affects big objects.
The rule of the interaction is the gravitational interaction between two masses is only as great as the sum of the smallest mass.
So that makes just no sense. All right. So the sum of the smallest mass. So again, he thinks gravity is something that requires an interaction between two things. So he doesn't think, like, if the Earth is just sitting there in space, that it has gravity already. It's pulling already. It doesn't need to say, oh, there's an object, now I will pull the object because there's now an object. I detected the object and now I will pull the object. No. It's the wrong starting point.
So your Lagrangian point here.
So the point equidistant between gravitational bodies in terms of their mass. Obviously that point changes, like the one between the Earth and the Moon is just a few hundred miles from the Moon. A few hundred, like, a few thousand.
Now moves proportional, it will be here somewhere, right? Much closer, because this field here is getting smaller as it moves away from the centre of this mass. So we've got a little tiny force there, and here we've got the matching force which dictates where the Lagrangian...
Yeah, we all know the inverse square law. So again, this is where you should start with, yes, let's go to the established, the stuff that's really been proven well. And so we already know that gravity is an inverse square force. So we don't need lessons on what the consequence of an inverse square force are. Okay? Just don't. And that it's completely proportional to mass. That is, how much gravity you can generate is dependent on how much mass you have.
Point is. Now some people say that the gravitational effect of our sun only extends for 2.5 light years. Yet our sun has been...
Who says that, right? So again, so he's not arguing with conventional physics. He's arguing with some sort of magical, strange, I don't know who. So now he's making a counter argument to some fringe belief in some other place that doesn't even have anything to do with the fact that you're supposed to be persuading me that your theory makes more sense than the conventional theory, to persuading me that it makes more sense than some loop-de-doo who just made up some other crap about how much gravity there is 2 million or a billion light years from here. Again, there's absolutely no reason for me to think it isn't as true as the light bulb argument. I shine a light bulb in space. There's specific rules about what's going to happen. And one of the rules is that even a billion light years away, because it is photons, because it is discrete bits of energy that are traveling, the fact is that one of them every 10,000 years will actually hit, an object a billion light years away. Yes, they've spread out. There's only, it's just throwing darts on acreage. That's the inverse square law. You have 10 darts. And I just keep making the size of the target bigger and bigger. And so now the darts can be in all kinds of distances from each other. And distance is essentially time. So you can just think that at any one point, I'd have to throw the darts, 10 darts, and I throw the 10 darts, and I throw the 10 darts. And maybe it'll take me 1,000 throws before one of the darts hits a certain location. But it's going to hit it. It's going to be a real dart that hits the target just like it was a foot away. It's not going to matter to the target. The guy who gets hit with the, if I spray bullets into the air, the guy who gets hit is going to say, shit, that was really personal. But it really wasn't, was it?
Existing for almost 6 billion years. So I would argue that...
So this is where your tangents are not very useful. So talking about a neutron star, talking about some other bullshit, doesn't really explain why this is an explanation of gravity. Because you really haven't explained how any of it happens.
The gravitational field of our sun is almost 6 billion light years away. Yet it's because it's halfway between here and our neighbouring star is about 2.5 light years, and then we have the solar Lagrangian point in space where the forces are balanced out.
Totally irrelevant to the fact that the sun's light can't be cancelled. You can't cancel the sun's light. It's gravity, the effect of it. And the simple truth is that it is a form of, the absence of energy is the same as the presence of energy in a sense. You're going to feel it. So the fact is something very far away won't feel the photon hitting it, so to speak. The one that's going to be affected is the one that's not getting hit by any energy from that location. So the sun looks like there's nothing there. And so the object's going to say, but there is energy over here pushing. So it's going to move into the vacuum created by the sun, because the sun absorbed a piece of energy that was heading right for this location in space. If the sun wasn't there, this location would have got hit by a force coming this way. And it didn't get hit by it, because the sun was in the way. And that's what's going to move it.
Now this has a lot of relevance to magnetism and gravity. See, magnetism...
Right, so this is electric universe horseshit. So you said you're not, but you are. No, it doesn't have anything to do with any push-pull mechanism. It doesn't have anything to do with any plus-minus mechanism. It's clearly just a fact that somehow on the surface of objects, if you're next to the surface or on the surface, the fact is more pressure is going to hit you on the head than is going to hit you from underneath. You're getting irradiated by a pressure that's not proportional. One side is pushing more than the other side is pushing back, and you have to come up with an explanation for why that's happening. Why does more energy go in than comes out?
Gravity and light, to paraphrase Newton, they are all manifestations of emotional forces. And we can call this for...
Yeah, emotional forces. So again, we still haven't gotten to it. Emotional forces, made of what, constructed how, with what rules, and you just already gave me some rules that can't make any sense at all. You're saying it knows the gravity field at this location knows to go this way.
Acts on any mass. gravitational motive force, GMF, and you have...
Yeah, whatever. Just okay. So that's Holy Ghost. Now you're going to have a rationalization for why you need a Holy Ghost in your theory, and I'm just going to say, what for? What is this for? What do you mean? We know what it is. It's the inverse of a light bulb. We know that mass is essentially the opposite of a light bulb. It's just like saying, yeah, if I put something with mass in space, it sucks energy. That's it. And so if something with mass is in front of me, okay, then it's creating a little bit of vacuum in space. It's pulling, like if it was air, it's pulling the air. It's pulling something out of the environment constantly because it's radiating less. It's a dark body, so to speak. It's a negative body in space. Right? So you can call that bent space, would be, pulling this empty space in, but you don't need a fluid. All you need is to understand that energy, okay, is actual little objects, and what it's actually doing is slowing a few of the objects down and constantly, so it radiates a little less energy than it actually once goes in, because the energy is used. It has to spend time rolling the boulders of the matter. Simple explanation. The evolution story.
So I'll write that down. We've got GMF. You've got electromotive force, which is EMF, and you've got...
Yeah, so you're just using their crap they invented. Okay, so there is no electromotive force. Okay, there really isn't. There's just force. Okay, and the force can be in the form of photons, or the force can be in the form of stuff going through a wire, and the stuff going through the wire is pretty much just photons banging into electrons.
Magnetomotive force, which is
something you just made up.
Yeah. Now, some people believe that there's only 2 + 2 + 2 or whatever. Just add one more factor into your theories. And
No, there's not one more factor here. Again, you're creating field lines for gravity. There's no field lines. What are you talking about, field lines? There's no field lines. The gravity is a negative radiation, essentially. It's a light bulb that's just going in reverse. There's no waves, there's no lines, there's nothing other than those straight line vectors.
Be correct. So my argument is for the universe is 3 + 3 + 3.
Whatever. You haven't come up with 3 objects. You haven't explained the 3 objects. You haven't explained the 3 functions. You haven't explained anything. You've drawn a bent line and said the bent line causes the object by the inverse square law to move towards this object. And somehow both objects have to be in the equation for it to work. It's not making gravity when it isn't connected to something else, when it isn't interrupting some other field line.
Now this will bring into a lot of people, Tesla fanatics, he said 369. I don't know how Tesla did it, but it looks like...
Oh, Tesla. So again, see, this is they start with a religion. I mean, Tesla was a religious nut. Plain, it's just factual. All right, and he clearly was... he got some notion in his head and he couldn't get it out, and he would spend billions of dollars, in old money, millions anyway, just burning holes in the ground because he just wouldn't let go of some notion he had in his head, even though it was just plainly not correct.
That's correct, 369. And my work in the last week, I was doing some hypothetical thought experiments, so I can, you've got to think about what you're going to do and what experiment you're going to use.
Yeah, that would be the good part, is to show an experiment that demonstrates the existence of your faster than light force. Show where, hey, we can see it sort of here, that it's all curved lines, and it's really moving faster than the speed of light. It's just not going in a straight line.
What you think the results will be, and it's not always what you think happens. Sometimes the results are quite unexpected. Now, I'll give you a secret. I'll let one of the secrets out. I'm not giving you the whole thing yet.
Yeah, whatever this game playing with your whole thing. I mean, I'm sorry. It just seems so con artist. I mean, who plays these games? I discovered something, but I can only tell you about it on a day that has an R in it, and the month has to have a W in it, and only when there's a W, because that's the God told me. Those are the rules. Okay.
I don't want to because I don't know what the ramifications are.
Oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm scared the world will change so radically that everybody will go insane and just pull their ears off. Oh, yeah, sure, that's what's going to happen. Okay. Yeah, there'll be an international panic. Oh, God, I just hate people.
Releasing this sort of technology onto the planet are you going to blow yourself up with it? Are you
Oh, blah, 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 blah.
make it military? I'd love to see it used for peaceful purposes, but
Oh, brother. I mean, so this is just more hype of this discovery that's not going to add up to it. Goddamn thing. He thinks he mixed two chemicals that nobody mixed before, and it makes endless cotton candy. You just put the two chemicals in, and cotton candy just comes out forever. La 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 la. Oh, well, I can't give it to the world because we'll all drown in cotton candy. So I'll vaguely imply the existence of the possibility of endless cotton candy, but I won't tell you how to do it.
there was an episode of the Twilight Zone where the aliens said to the humans,
Yeah, so I think that's where you've done most of your science, is in some sort of zone. That was less than lit well. So it was twilight, dim light, dim light, dim, obscura, monstrosada,
small talent for war. And yeah, we do. We're very warlike, and that's so negative. We're killing each other. And I'm not going to give you the full answer yet.
Whatever. Let's hear your big secret to the full answer. Cotton candious.
But I will give you some of my findings, and they are that gravitational fields. I'll write it here for you.
I don't know why you would bother doing that. I just don't understand. What, you don't think I speak English? I heard you say gravitational field. I need you to write it down because that's a concept I'm going to lose sight of. It's a complex formula or something, and I'm just not going to remember it unless I get a good visual of it. Gravitational. I forgot already.
Fields
Are happy. Consist of gravitables.
Now, what's a graviton? It's
Oh, jeez.
the form of a proton. Just like there's
Oh, it's a form of a proton. Oh, well, that explains everything. So it has 3 quarks in it.
three different types of neutrinos.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So, again, he's just taken the silly story of conventional physics and decided to keep some of those characters in his little wooey story. Except he has mermaids and, some other kind of, Smurfs.
And yes, they exist. And in certain instances, depending on the medium that they're travelling through, neutrinos will travel faster than light. But in the
Yeah, but you just made that up, and there's absolutely no reason to believe it, and there's absolutely no evidence of it, and there's absolutely no experiment that shows it, and it's absolute horseshit.
in space, light is the sprint champion. All right?
No, it's not all right. Oh, neutrinos go faster than light, except in space, where photons win. But they're going faster than light too because they're traveling a curved path, and they go to the store and buy some bubble gum. They're going in a straight line, and then they decide, I need some bubble gum, so I get some gum at the dime store, and then my car didn't start, and I couldn't get back to going, and blah 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 blah. Oh, this is not, this is not the right answer. This is just another religion.
Gravitational fields consist of gravitons. I'll write that here. A form of photon.
So whatever that means. Yes, I would say that force, all the forces, you could say are a form of photon, but the real truth is that it's the speed of force, and light is just a form of force. If you put the little force bits at a frequency, if you shoot your bullets at a frequency, then they'll be a photon. But if there's no frequency, then they're not a photon.
Now magnets, same thing. And the biggest thing I can tell you about magnets is they consist of, I don't think we can call them magnetons, I think there's already but let's call them magnons, right? So a magnetic field.
Yes, and they're a form of photon too. That's all fine, but you have to explain why they manifest a completely different function. You have to explain why, like, whatever the thing is that's leaving the charges, somehow it causes the other thing to move closer to it rather than away from it. How do I shoot a bullet at something and the bullet makes it move closer? That's the part you're clueless and missing. So just calling it a magneton or a graviton or electroton isn't going to answer any questions.
Magnetic field consists.
So again, where did I guess it just seems kind of obvious to me that the worst part of any physics lecture you could ever watch is when the professor wastes time writing crap on the board that's not a formula. When he's writing the shit he just said, it's like, what are you writing it for? I wrote it down already. I don't need you to write it too. You're wasting my time. Teach me physics. Don't teach me how to write on a blackboard. I know how to do that.
Now this is just my naming convention. Magnons.
Who cares?
Now the key here, we'll put here, a form of photon.
Right, a form of something moving the speed of light.
But just with a different field arrangement.
Yes.
Gravity.
It's all stuff moving the speed of light. A point I've emphasized over and over again. And just giving them names is useless. You have to give them properties. Properties. I need to know what makes them different.
Magnetic, and we all know that electromagnetic fields, I'll write it down, electromagnetic field.
It's just funny, like I said, we all lived in the same universe. I guess he thinks that was the best part of a physics lecture, is when the professor is writing a whole bunch of crap he just said. Like, those are the best parts of the lecture. When that's just like I said, it's just brain-numbingly pointless. It's so redundant and idiotic. It's like him pouring a glass of water and just having a drink. It's just Let's waste some time doing nothing.
Consists of photons. Right? And a photon is in itself a combination of an electric field and a magnetic field.
Made of what? Field of what? What do you mean, field? Field of doing what? How did the field? What is the field? What? Just language, just words. Don't mean a damn thing.
Three different forms, or three different manifestations of energy.
That's the only part you need, right? Is just to say three different forms of energy. And the energies are all moving the same speed. That would be also a good thing for you to say, but you've already ruined that by saying, no, some of them are moving faster than the speed of light. So you've already broken something that could have been, yes, that makes sense. They're all the same thing, just arranged differently. And the difference in the arrangement is what makes the difference in the function. There you go.
Gravitational field, magnetic field, electromagnetic field. You can have a magnetic field without electricity, or without the electric component, and you can also have the electric field without the magnetic component. Now that may fly in the face of physics, but there are instances where this can exist.
It doesn't matter to me because I don't understand what these fields are. So until you tell me what the fields are, it can't make any difference to me whether, well, it's got a little less of a magnetic field. Well, who cares? I don't know what it is anyway. So Whatever.
Okay, now getting back to this, escape velocities. My argument is the magnetic field consists of a whole bunch of these magnons, but they don't have the sufficient escape velocity. They're not energetic enough to leave the orbit of the nuclei that's where the arrangement of atoms and are causing the magnetic field. So you've got your...
So they're moving the speed of light, yet they don't have enough velocity to escape. So that right there just doesn't make any sense at all. Sorry. You need a black hole for that, and those are just speculation anyway. And the very fact that it would be affected by gravity is idiotic, because forces aren't affected by forces. I mean, there's just no evidence of it. You can't crash laser beams into laser beams. You can't crash laser beams into magnetic fields. You can't crash laser beams into electric fields. So why are we having a conversation about the forces interacting with a force? Oh, that's right, because that would be silly in my opinion. Because there's no good evidence supporting any notion of any such thing.
You got your atom, this, some nuclei, you got different electron shells, blah blah blah.
Yeah, blah blah blah.
You've got this magnetic field coming like this, and like this, and if you could accelerate it enough...
So understand that that field can be drawn by just drawing straight lines from the dipole. It's a dipole. Okay, but obviously an atom doesn't have a magnetic field that has this kind of shape, because the positives are on the inside, the negatives are on the outside. So its field changes depending on how far away you are from it and what you're closest to. So depending on where the electrons are, you'll see more of the proton or less of the proton, and how much you see of it is everything to what you're going to see. So again, the field lines, there's no evidence that atoms, individual atoms, have this dipolar magnet field. No evidence at all. You just made that up.
And I know that you've done experiments that prove this, but it hasn't clicked, it hasn't gelled in your head what's happening. You accelerate this magnetic field enough and get it up to light speed, and then voila, you'll have your little photons.
Oh, whatever. So photons that have a polarization that's 1,000 times the size of the atom. So something will pop out of this atom that has 1,000 times the size of the atom. Don't think so. Anyway, this is getting tedious. So maybe we'll just surrender.
Coming out the top, and maybe the bottom.
Maybe.
This work is all based on experience and actual experiments.
Whatever. Yeah, she did actual experiments on actual individual atoms and saw them burp whatever photons out of their ass crack. Yeah, I don't think he did.
And the solution to this is out there in the galaxy. You can see the physical evidence. You want to see accelerated magnetic fields, go and have a look at your pulsars. And it was over 50 years that my own grandfather told me that if you can understand the pulsars and how they work, you'll have solved everything. And
well, whatever. I mean, the way pulsars work is it's just a binary system, so there's nothing to pulsars. I mean, it's just something, two binary objects, and they can just spin at different rates, and that'll tell you how often it flashes. So it's the light bulb analogy for real. Yeah, it's a real light bulb analogy. Something goes in front of the light bulb. Oh, I don't see it. Oh, I see it. I don't see it. Oh, I see it. I don't see it.
it was correct. So you look at rotating masses. There's two types of movement in this universe: linear and rotational, and you can combine the two.
So that makes no sense either. No, you combine two straight line vectors and you can make a curved line, but you can make a curved line out of straight lines, but you can't make a straight line out of curved lines.
Whatever. There are also other manifestations of movements and forces, but it's like subatomic particles. You will be able to manifest energy into a multiple manifestation of different particles. There's almost an unlimited number of particles you can create with energy, but none of them are stable.
Oh, whatever. Just whatever. I can't make any sense out of that. And where, like I said, where did you get that thought that you have to defend that Holy Ghost?
Except for the neutrons are stable. We're talking real particles, not these massless particles. We're talking real particles. These massless particles are force carriers. That's what
Yeah, well, you can't carry a force if you don't have any mass. So again, just silly. I mean, these are the contradictions that don't make any sense. The rest mass of a photon. Well, the photon never stops. How could it have a rest mass of nothing? So it always has a mass connected to its velocity. So we know it has to have momentum. So why are we having this conversation about a massless particle? What? It's just baby talk. You never had a non-moving photon. You never have a rest mass. I measured a photon when it was resting. No, there's no such thing. Just goop. This is just such nonsense to talk about your massless momentum. It's just absolute nonsense.
they are. These are your force carriers. So basically what we've done is just a few experiments, and they've given rise to this differing view. I don't call myself a dissident. I'd rather think of myself as an explorer, exploring the fringes of physics. And
I'll concede you're fringy as hell, but you're one of those fringes that just never really happens, theoretically. Okay, you're a theoretically possible, but never even actual fringe.
analysing what's going where and how it's doing it. But yeah, this is just my my work and what I think.
Right, so you didn't give us any clue about your infinite cotton candy machine. You didn't give us any single clue to understand what the fuck you're talking about, what kind of new physics you have, what kind of new innovation, what kind of new, big, new, earth-shatteringly dangerous new technology. Nothing. Not even a glimmer of an idea of what the fuck you're talking about.
Is going on, and my interpretation of these experiments. So, in a nutshell, these photons are travelling at sub-relativistic velocities.
Whatever that means. Sub-relativistic now. What the hell is that?
That's why they don't escape the magnet. That's why gravitons are captured by mass and
captured even. So again, they're bent by the bending force that was bent by the other bending force that was bent by the other bending force. Yeah, it's just bending forces all the way down, just special bending everywhere.
Protons and magnons interact with mass. Photons, not so much. So these have different physical properties. That's all for today. I'll think about that.
So he says photons not so much, and the conventional argument is the Eddington experiment, where photons are bent twice as much. It's twice the inverse square law. The inverse square law times 2. In terms of the effect on a photon, it's magically bent twice as much as the rules for all the other matter. And he says not so much. That's not the evidence that physics claims is real. Now, if you're willing to say the Eddington experiment's horseshit and photons aren't bent by gravity, well, then that would be interesting. But clearly that's not what you believe, because somehow you believe all these fields are created by a bunch of bent stuff moving in weird orbits.
Argue against it. It's getting a bit warm here. You might see I'm sweating a bit. But thanks for watching. If you like it, I'll be doing a few of these videos. I don't want to cover all of physics. I just want to cover gravity and what we're doing with it and how we're making a drive system.
Well, I wish you would have just got to something more elemental, because you didn't explain any of it. You didn't give any reason to believe any of it. So certainly you didn't sell your product to me. I'm not buying your cotton candy machine. So you need to show me some better evidence that you have one. And
the next video I do, we'll look at the journey to Mars and how we can do it way more efficiently. So thanks for watching. If you like it, give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, with the magical powers of magic.
If you want to see more, subscribe. I'll try and do a video as often as possible. But one thing that is the most precious in your life is time. So
yeah, so don't waste it watching somebody write stuff. He just magnetic field. I didn't need you to write that. I know what those are.
Thanks for your time, and we'll be talking to you next time. Cheers.
Whatever. Cheerio. Yeah, there's nothing to say. It's just too. You just can't reason with the human race. You all be functionally unfunctional. Yeah, there's some spanner in the gear work. Oh, there's a warning. Ooh, that's not good. Anyway, we'll assume it recorded. So till the next time and such, it's calculating still. So it should have recorded. Oh, I should do this first. Alright, yeah. This has been a DraftScience video presentation and such.